Who is the best starting pitcher available in free agency? Is it Blake Snell or Yoshinobu Yamamoto? Today we explore who's better. We're going to do that by breaking this down into three categories. The first one, stuff. The second one, who is going to be better next year. And the third one, who is the better investment long term. And we'll give a point at the end of each round. So we begin with who has the better stuff right now. And with Yoshinobu Yamamoto, it's a little tough to tell because we still have to watch him try to pitch in the big leagues against MLB competition. But Arm Layton for Us at Just Baseball wrote an amazing article and did a great video breaking down each pitch in Yamamoto's arsenal. He'll go a little more in depth than I will right now on it, but essentially to sum it up, this is a guy that has a clear 5-pitch mix. It starts with a fastball that is a plus pitch. It comes from a low release point. He can touch the upper 90s. Is more going to live in the mid to low 90s of that pitch, between 93 and 95 miles per hour. But he gets a lot of induced vertical break on that fastball, which means he can get that rising action up in the zone, which is very tough on hitters, especially when you pair that with a devastating splitter. We've seen a lot of Japanese pitchers thrive with the splitter. Kodai Senga has his ghost fork, which is essentially just a variation of a splitter. This gives you that diving action that you pair with the fastball, which really can keep hitters off balance. You can go north to south really well with those two pitches. He also has a curveball that he can mix in that he can throw for a strike in any count. He can bury that pitch out of the zone and really gives him just another plus offering that is going to be tough for MLB hitters to square up. You add in a cutter that he can throw to get ground balls. He can get that pitch in the zone as much as he wants to, so can really get a lot of strikes with it. And you have this 4-pitch mix that he's been using primarily in the NPB, but there's a 5th pitch in his sweeper, which has not been a featured pitch of his arsenal, but in Arm's video, he sort of hypothesized that facing more right-handed batters in the majors, we might see that sweeper more. It has the chance to be another plus pitch. So 5 potential plus pitches, that's why this guy is going to make a ton of money. That's why he could be an ace. With all that said, we're comparing him to Blake Snell, a guy who has among the best stuff in all of Major League Baseball, which we've already seen dominate MLB competition. This guy just won a Cy Young, and it's because his stuff is so damn good. We all know the pitch for Blake Snell is the curveball. His curveball was arguably the best pitch in baseball this past year, was in the 100th percentile when it comes to run value on his breaking balls. It's the curveball and the slider, but particularly the curveball, which breaks 83% more than an average MLB curveball. So just ridiculous movement on that pitch coming from the left side makes it impossible for left-handed batters to really get a read on it. And then he also has a slider and a changeup, which grade out really well on top of it. Each of those 3 offerings has a whiff percentage, or had a whiff percentage this past season, of over 45%, which means if guys are swinging at anything but a fastball, half the time they're probably swinging through it. Now, you also add in a fastball from a 6'4" lefty that's averaging over 95 miles per hour, and that is a really great mix of pitches. And again, we just saw it at the absolute height of his powers, where he pitched to a 1.20 ERA against big league competition over his final 23 starts. As much as I love Yoshinobu Yamamoto, right now, today, if you had to ask me who has better stuff, it's Blake Snell. So the first point goes to Snell. Now we look at how it's all going to translate this year. And I think the big area where we can look at these two guys and leave some room for interpretation on how Yamamoto could be better next season, it's the ability to be a workhorse. The difference between these two guys is Snell is not going to pound the zone. Yamamoto is, and he can work deeper into games. Over the last 3 years, he has eclipsed 190 innings pitched twice, and then this past year it was over 170 innings, and that's not even counting what he did in the postseason. With that said, the question for Yamamoto this season is going to be how fast can he adjust to MLB competition? It might not happen overnight. Speaking as someone who watched Kodai Senga pitch this past year and have to make that jump from the NPB to the MLB, it did not happen overnight. He did pitch to a 2.98 ERA across the season, which was spectacular as a rookie. He finished runner-up in the National League. But his first month of the season, he had an ERA over 4, and he gave up 4 or more earned runs in 3 of his first 7 starts. What I saw from Senga is he had to figure out how to utilize his arsenal against MLB batters. Early, we saw him throwing a lot of ghost forks only when he got to 2 strikes. He did not go to that pitch early in counts. So for hitters, they sort of knew once they got to 2 strikes, all right, now I'm going to get to see this devastating ghost fork, and they would spin on it. They would get to full counts before they would finally take the bat off their shoulder. Senga learned, and he started bearing fastballs in 2-strike counts by hitters that were just waiting for the ghost fork. He started stealing strikes with the ghost fork early in counts, throwing that pitch in the zone more often. So we're going to see a similar learning curve for Yamamoto, but there is going to be a learning curve. Blake Snell, there's really not going to be a learning curve. He's here. He's arrived. He's won 2 Cy Youngs. The only question I would have when it comes to Blake Snell this upcoming season, how many innings is he going to pitch? This is a guy that has only eclipsed 180 innings pitched twice in his career, his 2 Cy Young seasons. Other than that, he typically lives in the 125 to 130 range. He's been remarkably close at a lot of his seasons. It's typically like 128 innings. And if you get that and he pitches to a 2.2 ERA, you love it. But if Yamamoto is going to pitch 180 innings compared to it, he'll be better. I still think, though, if you're looking at these 2 pitchers and you're trying to say, if you're betting your life, right, on which one has a better chance to win a Cy Young this season, to be the best pitcher in their respective league, I still think that point goes to Blake Snell. So right now it's 2 points to none. Snell's in the lead. But here we go. Who's the better investment? This is maybe the most important point to make, because the market has spoken here on Yoshinobu Yamamoto. This guy is I almost feel like the most sought after free agent, even more so than Shohei Ohtani right now, because a third of the teams in baseball are going after him. They all want a piece of Yoshinobu Yamamoto because he's 25 years old. The chance to sign a guy right now to even an 8, 9, maybe a 10-year contract where he's not even going to touch 35 years old on that deal, that is a opportunity that just doesn't happen. The potential of him being an ace as soon as this upcoming season for those teams, it is just too good of an opportunity for these teams to pass on. They are all in on Yamamoto, and the price tag is going to be really high. We wrote an article early this month breaking down the top 25 free agents with projections on each of their contracts. Yoshinobu Yamamoto, we projected to make $240 million over an 8-year deal. That's $30 million per season, and I'm starting to think we were low on that. If there's this many teams bidding, what stops any of them to say, you know what, let's give him a 9th year? And if you do that, I imagine he's going to cross past that $250 million threshold, which we've only seen Garrett Cole do, and he crossed over $300 million. There's a chance Yamamoto gets that far. I don't think it'll happen, but if he signed for 10 years and $300 million, I would only be surprised. I would not be shocked. He's the better investment for the age component alone. You look at Blake Snell, if he had free agency after his first Cy Young, he'd have the same market that Yamamoto's enjoying because he'd be 26 years old, coming off an age 25 season where he pitched to a sub-2 ERA back in 2018. But now we've watched his career play out. We've seen the down years where he hasn't gotten past 130 innings pitched. We've seen him, get banged up with little injuries here and there. We've seen it all. And even worse so for Snell, we've seen the history of pitchers in their 30s. Last year, there was 2 starting pitchers in their 30s that got 9-figure deals, Jacob deGrom and Carlos Rodon. deGrom needed Tommy John surgery, and Rodon was banged up all season and pitched to an ERA over 6. We've seen Steven Strasburg get a big-time contract, $245 million, and barely pitch on it. Patrick Corbin, his struggles have not been injury-related, but just a lack of performance. His stuff just doesn't play up the same way it used to. Robbie Ray had to undergo Tommy John surgery on one of these big deals. There is inherent risk in signing any pitcher in their 30s to a 9-figure deal that's going to span beyond 5 years. And so Snell is going up against that. So when you look at these two pitchers and you ask which one's the better investment, despite the fact that Blake Snell might be better right now, Yoshinobu Yamamoto clearly gets the point for being a better investment because he's just so much younger. All of this leads me to the final question. Who's better, Blake Snell or Yoshinobu Yamamoto? In the short term, I think the answer is pretty clear. It's Blake Snell. If you're trying to win in 2024 and you are an ace away from getting there, Blake Snell should be your guy. Blake Snell, if you had to hand the ball to one of these two guys in a playoff game tomorrow, in my eyes, Blake Snell has proven that he's the better pitcher at this point in time. But Yoshinobu Yamamoto hasn't had the chance to face MLB competition. He hasn't had the chance to show what he can do on this stage. So there is a absolute possibility that Yamamoto doesn't need time to translate it. That everything he's done the NPB, which is win the last 3 MVP awards as a pitcher, that could just happen in Major League Baseball. Maybe not the MVPs, but a Cy Young could be in his future, certainly. Trying to decide which of these guys is better is a complicated question. And that's where I fall back on the fact that Blake Snell right now is the better pitcher. But if I'm an owner or the team general manager and I'm trying to decide which of these guys I want to sign this offseason, of course, I'd be picking Yoshinobu Yamamoto because he's 25. But right now, Blake Snell is better. That's going to be all for this edition of Who's Better Baseball. We'll have shows every Thursday moving forward, so make sure you hit that subscribe button, and we'll be back with more content breaking down who's better at baseball.